Welcome back to the C++ tutorial.
All right.
Right now we're going to introduce the concept of the multi-dimensional array.
Yes.
And the specific multi-dimensional array we're going to talk about is the two-dimensional array, which is one of the most commonly used arrays.
Right.
It's basically like a matrix.
Yeah.
So right down here, our buddy Bry, he found a multiplication table.
Right.
On Google.
Yeah.
Yes, Google.
So a very simple example of a two-dimensional array.
You can kind of visualize a two-dimensional array like this. This is the index. The first index will be the row because it goes row and then column. So index number. This is the first index. This is the second index, and it might make a little bit more sense once I write down what it looks like. So I'm going to create a new source file, and through the magic of editing, you won't have to see this. We magically have a skeleton written for us. So we're going to do an integer. Two-dimensional array.
Right.
And we're going to do a multiplication table, but before we describe that, let's talk about what a two-dimensional array looks like.
Okay.
We'll do int table.
Sure.
And then just like before, we're going to have this, but we're also going to have
another one.
Another one.
So for every one of the first one, we'll have a whole nother array. So it'll be an array of arrays.
Pretty much.
Or a list of lists.
And so you can also do this, and that would be a three-dimensional array.
Right, you could have a cube.
But we're not going to do that. We're going to work with... I'm sorry, didn't even let you down, Brian. We're going to work with just two. Now, just like before, we actually have the right numbers in here. So if I were to do one that is 10...
Maybe we'll do 8. Keep it little.
Keep it little? You got it. We'll do one 8 by 8.
All right.
Now, this one right here, you couldn't look at this one as a 13 by 13. And the reason we know that is because we start from 0, but we end at 12, which means there's 13 elements here. So we're going to kind of replicate this, but on a little bit of a smaller scale.
Right.
We're going to come out to 7 and not 12.
Right.
Come back here. With the two-dimensional array introduces the concept of the nested for loop for initializing a two-dimensional array, which is very important.
Right. So it's pretty much a for loop within a for loop.
Yes.
So every time we pass through a loop, we'll do another loop.
So what it's going to essentially do is do one row, another row, another row, another row, and as we write this, we'll see how it looks. We'll do for int I equals 0.
Right.
While I is less than 8, I plus plus. And inside here, I'm going to be a cheater. Copy that bad boy and throw it back in there. But we got to change the variable name to j. We need to have both values for initializing the table. So what we're going to do,
just like the way we declared it.
Just like the way we declared it. We're going to make element I, j equal, what, -1?
Sure. So every time you come, so the first time you pass through the loop, I is 0, and then j is 0. So the intersection of 0 and 0 is equal to this. So then we'll do I, j equals 1. The intersection of 0 and 1 equals this.
We can kind of look at this table and it illustrates exactly what you're talking about.
Right.
So if we were to set everything to 0, we can kind of take a look at 0, 0.
Right.
So the first thing that we're going to do is this would be I and this would be j. So at the time that I and j meet, make that value 0.
Right.
And then I is still going to stay 0 while j goes to 1. So then it's make 0, 1, 0.
Right, at that intersection.
Then make 0, 2, 0. All the way to the end.
Then when it hits there, it goes down to the next row and so on.
When it gets to the end, in this case 12, it's going to increment I to 1.
Right.
So it's just going to go I, and then j is going to go all the way through. And then I is going to go up 1, and then j is going to go all the way through.
All right.
It's a whole lot of fun. So this is just going to initialize it. Now to print it, we can copy this exact same loop because we're going to use it again. And we could just do...
instead of storing a value, we'll just output the value.
Yeah. I, j, and I guess we'll do an introduction to a tab.
All right. So like we were talking about with special characters before, with the backslash and then something to define a special character, tab in particular is \t. So we'll separate each one of these values with a tab.
Now another thing that we need to make sure that we do is every single time we print out a row, we want to put in an end line. So that each row doesn't concatenate into one giant stream. It could print out one row, then another row, then another row.
Right.
So, Brian, how are we going to do that?
Okay, so we'll block off the nested loop.
And just to, even though spacing doesn't matter to the compiler, I'm going to space this over to show you that that belongs to that loop. And that we're going to space over to here and put it at end out.
All right, let's see what it looks like.
So just what's going to happen is we're going to start with row 0, then we're going to print out all of the everything that is in that row, and then we're going to do a line break, and then we're going to start over on row 1. So if I do F9, save this as array 2.
So now we have our array of negative ones.
Right, so we go 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and then all the way down.
Right.
Looks beautiful.
Oh, yeah.
So now, let's make it a multiplication table.
Okay.
So it's actually a very simple transition. Instead of making this equal -1,
Let's make it I times j.
I times j. That's all that we have to change.
Yep.
We could run this now.
And voila, we have our multiplication table.
Oh my goodness. We can make this look a little prettier. Let's print out a column and row heading.
Okay.
So how are we going to go about that? The first thing that we're going to do is we're going to, right before we print everything, we're going to do another for loop. And this is going to be, we can just copy this and paste that there. And this is going to be cout I tab.
And then maybe a line after that, we'll see out an end line, as well as a whole bunch of dashes. And then just dash away. And then another end line.
Ooh, let's see what that looks like.
All right.
Oh my god, we have to have more dashes.
Yeah.
Absolutely
a couple more dashes.
We gotta go down crazy with the dashes here.
All right, let's try that out.
Take it back a few.
There we go. It's not an exact science.
This should be perfect.
Oh,
that
nice.
looks great.
Beautiful.
So here's the heading. Now let's make the column.
Okay.
So that's going to actually be part of this.
So before we go through the first for loop for the header, let's add another tab right before that happens, just so we can kind of space it out a little bit.
Right here?
So if we go up maybe 4 lines, right before the for loop here. So before that for loop happens, we'll just put like a tab in there.
So we're going to put another tab here.
And then before the end line with all the dashes, we'll also put a tab there.
Right here?
Yep.
We want to do /n then /t. Let's run this before we boast about how great we are.
So it's not going to make sense now, but once we put the row numbers in and offset all the data, it'll still match up.
Right. So I guess we can kind of move all of this over by putting a tab here. Well, I'm sorry, by putting a tab here.
Right. So here we'll actually put the row number and then a tab.
Right.
Or maybe the row number and a vertical line and then a tab.
So we'll do cout I, and then we'll do maybe space like this, /t.
Yes. Beautiful.
It's rather pitiful.
Yeah, but it gets the point across.
But it definitely gets the point across.
So now you can see, like, if we go to row 4, and then we go over to column 2.
1, 2.
So we have 8.
Wow.
So if we do 7 and 7, we get 49.
7 times 7.
Wow, we have a times table.
We have a multiplication table.
Oh, yeah, sorry.
That is the two-dimensional array. Please stay tuned, because things are about to start really heating up when we start talking about functions.
Oh, yeah.